What's up guys, my name is Fari and we're back with another video. Basically today we're going to be going through 2025 in review, some of the things that have worked, my biggest takeaways, and also what I'm going to be doing in 2026 to ultimately improve on this and also just keep moving the needle forward. So focus areas for this specific video, we've got 3 focus areas that I really just want to drill down to, and also my biggest takeaways from these 3 different focus areas. Building, basically the main thing, building out systems and how that has ultimately translated into the things we've done this year and also moving forward next year. Then we got YouTube, basically YouTube, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and also what is going to be going on next year. And then we've also got some of the personal takeaways that I've gotten throughout the year and going to be using next year to ultimately improve, and then ultimately what is next. So without waffling and getting talking too much, let's just get straight into it. So building, some of the biggest lessons, I've got 3 lessons that I've learned throughout the year, which is building systems changed how I think, not just how I worked. And I think this is one of the biggest takeaways that I've gotten specifically from building, from seeing, multiple systems and processes that were super inefficient, ultimately made me realize that for me, the most important thing is to build systems such so that I am able to then leverage my time and the things that I'm able to do on a day-to-day, not just building within the machine, but also building from a personal level as well. Because one of the biggest things that I've also learned this year is that, how you build things internally ultimately translates into how you do things externally, and this has ultimately changed how I have worked as well, in terms of building out systems and realizing that I need to make sure that I'm living up to the way that I perceive the way that I do things, and owning up to that as well is equally important. And also owning outcomes that forced me to grow faster than comfort ever will. And I think this is, one of the biggest takeaways from building specifically as well, in terms of just owning and ownership in terms of the things that I'm doing on a day to day, to say, if I want to play bigger or I want to make bigger bets, I need to make sure that I'm able to own up to the things that I'm doing on a day to day, such so that it forces me to grow. Because you're never gonna grow if you feel so much comfort within your environment and also the things that you're doing on a day to day. I've personally seen a lot of different levels of growth in times where I've been super uncomfortable, and learning that the different outcomes that I need to produce are ultimately gonna force me to grow in ways that I could have never imagined. And understanding that comfort, when you start to feel comfort in terms of your work, sometimes it is a good thing, but sometimes it really isn't. If you feel comfort for too long, then you start asking the question of, am I building things that are really as valuable as I think they are, or am I just pushing out things that I've done before in the past because that's comfortable. So understanding that the outcomes and ownership towards those outcomes, that hey, this is on me. I want to make bigger and bigger bets next year. That means taking on bigger projects that I may not fully understand how to do at first, but figuring out and having that mentality of, I'm gonna figure it out no matter what. I'm just gonna constantly keep learning on the things that I need to do, and understanding that we're gonna make mistakes for sure, but as long as we're just pushing forward what it is that we need to do on a day to day. And also understanding that momentum comes from shipping, not waiting to feel ready. And this is one of the biggest things as well, specifically when we jump into YouTube, doing the daily videos, and understanding that momentum only comes as a result of you doing things and taking action on a day to day. If you don't feel like building something today, which is one of my non-negotiables moving forward from this specific year, then you ultimately aren't able to move the needle. I've realized that the thing that has allowed me to 10x what I've been able to do on a day to day is making sure that I build momentum in the smallest of all places. I make sure that each and every single day I'm building something imperfect, it doesn't really matter, just as long as I'm shipping something on a day to day, because that builds that identity from within that I am going to be building each and every single day. And that also forces momentum to come, because each and every single day you're holding yourself accountable to making sure that you're shipping something, and you're not waiting to feel ready. You're not in research mode, but you're more so in active, proactive building mode, and always tapping into that quadrant of production is equally as important. And on a day to day, when I'm building out systems or I'm building out something, I always ask myself, am I moving towards the production quadrant, or am I just in the research mode, just researching a bunch of different things, when I could rather be building momentum such so that it ultimately pushes forward the things that I need to do on a day to day. And that also fed into the YouTube as well, because the daily output rewired my confidence and clarity. Because one of the main things that I, thought throughout this year was, how can I, gain clarity? How can I do or get things that ultimately allow me to gain this high level of clarity, just so that it somewhat makes the things that I'm doing much more clear. But then I realized that each and every single day that you need to make sure that you're engineering clarity, because clarity just doesn't come, to you from research mode. If you ask a bunch of different questions, comforting questions, instead of truth questions, you ultimately understand that, this clarity is never truly going to come unless you take action. Unless you're actively engineering this level of clarity through action, then you're then able to then, understand that, hey, these are the moves that I need to make on a day to day in order to get to the next level. Because in all honesty, for me as well, I've realized that you're never gonna truly know what the next move is gonna look like until you take action. And for me, that was ultimately, making sure that each and every single day I'm shipping a video, which ultimately rewired my personal stance and also identity, in terms of making sure that I'm not making this mistake of waiting and making sure that everything is perfect before I ship. Basically making things perfect as I go, and gaining that high degree of clarity as I go, and not really waiting for that, and just building through that, and understanding that proximity to serious operators mattered more than views. Because funny story, I've had this call, I think it was about a month ago, with the guy that I spoke to, and he was like, hey, you don't have that many views. And for me, it was like, okay, I never really truly optimized for views in terms of what we're building, because I know that, what we're building and the people that we're speaking to is only for a select, group of people. And his frame of mind was like, hey, this guy doesn't have, a bunch of different views, and what value or what leverage is it for him, if I don't have a specific audience. And truth be told, I did understand it from his point of view. But then I realized that, we're not playing the optimization game for goals, we're playing the optimization game for value, and making sure that each and every single day that we're, providing as much value as we possibly can, and also sharing that value on this channel as well, to make sure that we're also providing the platform as well, in order to grow and also learn each and every single day. Because you only know so much on a day to day, and operating and also, connecting with serious people that are building, massive things, is also gonna make sure that each and every single day that we're learning a bunch of different things, and also, implementing the things that we're learning on a day to day. Because also in a year's time from now, we can also revisit the videos that are on the channel and still implement some of those nuggets, because then we think back to the time that, we were making the videos, and the frame of thoughts that we had on that, and also just use that as well. And also understanding that publishing in public became a thinking tool, not just content. One of the biggest things as well, when I was doing the daily videos each and every single day, was that it was sharpening the way that I thought about building systems, because then I was able to rapidly iterate on the things that I was implementing on a day to day, to realize that is this actively useful? Asking the questions of, is this actively useful? Can I implement this? And is this the highest leverage ROI for the clients or the people that we're working with? And not just using it as a platform for just creating content. Because I think for me, and the way that I've always thought about optimizing the YouTube hasn't been from a point of view of how do we just create content for the sake of creating content, but how can we provide as much value as we possibly can in video format, or the media, using the medium of YouTube in order to convey the message or the value that we're offering, and also use that on a day-to-day. Because publishing each and every single day ultimately allowed me to then realize that, hey, we're coming up with different frameworks and ways to think, and also understanding how to build our own internal operating system as well, finding out where the cracks lie as well, and also iterating on that has been invaluable. Value has been something that has allowed us to add towards our thinking tools, and also iterate on that. And that has been something that has been invaluable for us and what we're going to be doing into the future. And that ultimately played into some of the personal things that I've ultimately learned as well, which is isolation was necessary, not avoidance. Because I remember I made a video about this, and it was around having strategic isolation periods where you basically are by yourself, because there's so much noise and so many different things that are happening in the world. And if you're then able to strategically isolate yourself in periods of times where you need to think clearly, then you're then able to grow and also 10x your output as well. Because if you're working on the machine or in the machine each and every single day, you lose a lot of context as well. And being able to somewhat take a step back and just understand, hey, this is what we're building on a day to day, and this is what's necessary for us to make them 1-2 small tweaks that allows us to then 10x our output, then it's worth it. And understanding that as well, I've realized, is a skill within itself. Identifying the 1 to 2 things that move the needle the most is also a skill. It's not just something that you wake up and say, I understand, what are the 1 to 2 different things that we need to move in terms of, creating more leverage. It's more so something that you gain out of doing reps, and understanding that some of these reps or some of these things that you need to formulate come as a result of this strategic isolation, which has been invaluable. Because you do need times where you're just by yourself, you have your own thoughts, and you're then able to then use these thoughts and different ideas that you gain through that in order to 10x the thing that you're doing on a day-to-day. And this has been something that has been invaluable for me personally, because it's allowed me to block off a lot of different noises and just really truly realign with myself in terms of what we're doing on a day-to-day, or what I'm doing on a day-to-day, and pushing forward the things that I ultimately want to do. And understanding that energy is finite, I became ruthless with inputs. And this is another big one, because I had the impression, going into this year, to be honest, that the inputs that you have ultimately directly correlate to the outputs that you have. And this by far has not been the truth, in terms of inputs have not translated into the outputs that I was hoping for on a day to day. But realizing that the smallest inputs that you have on a day to day can create massive amounts of outputs or leverage for you. You just need to understand what those inputs are that you need to be making on a day to day. Because sometimes you think that if I have massive levels of inputs, it's going to equal massive levels of outputs. But that has not been true for me, especially this year, that each and every single day that I've had this frame of mind of, I need to make sure that I have massive levels of output. It's not direct, or of input, sorry. It's not directly correlated to the outputs that I was expecting. That made me realize that I need to formulate the skill within myself in terms of identifying what those 2 to 3 things are, that the inputs that those are, that ultimately allow me to then 10x the impact or leverage that I'm then able to create. And then understanding that this year has exposed what I actually care about versus what I was tolerating. And sometimes you have to go through these periods, in the way that I've learned things, where you have to tolerate certain things, and that's fine for a specific period of time. But then comes a time where you need to make sure that you understand what are the things that you actively care about, and realizing that building is one of the most important things to me. It's each and every single day, are we creating value? Are we making sure that what we're building is valuable, not only for us but for the people that we're working with on a day to day, and making sure that each and every single day that we're striving towards learning and also iterating on the things that we need to iterate on a day to day. And that is invaluable, that has been invaluable for me, especially in terms of understanding, what are the things that I actively care about, and then having a frame of mind or lens that allows me to then understand what are the things that I need to do on a day to day to actively, move towards that vision of the things that I actively care about versus the things that I was tolerating. Because sometimes you tolerate things, but then you realize later down the line that those things were creating more harm for you rather than creating good. And that means you need to reshape or refocus back into the things that you care about. But sometimes you just have to learn these things. And this is something that I've, had to learn the hard way, in terms of, just understanding that there's certain things and certain times where you sometimes tolerate certain things, but that's okay as long as it's not for an extended period of time, because you need to refocus back on the things that you care about, because the things that you care about are the things that allow you to wake up excited and ready to take on the day and ultimately build as well. And that has also been the main driving force for the things that I've been doing this year in 2025, and also moving forward to 2026. So what is next? The main biz is the focus, just constantly just focusing on building each and every single day, making sure that we're structuring our internal operating system, how I'm building and focusing on being a leader as well, how I am also just holding myself accountable on a day to day, making sure that I'm sticking to the things that are non-negotiables for me, making sure each and every single day that I'm building something imperfect, no matter how big or small, but each and every single day making sure that I'm building a bunch of different things that are super aligned to the things that we're ultimately building. And that means avoiding shiny stuff. And I think this has been one of the things that has also happened throughout the year, of just saying no more often and just avoiding a bunch of different things that seem shiny or that seem, like a good opportunity, but don't align with the things that, we're striving towards. Because there's so many things, like I said, there's so much noise in this world, and opportunities come left, right, and center sometimes. But understanding, does this actively move towards the main goal or the main things that I care about on a day to day? Does it actively lead towards that, or is it something strategic that makes sense? And if not, then you ultimately need to avoid that. But some of these things you just get and you learn by doing reps and just getting more reps in, which I've learned a lot this year, and that is what I'm going to be doing or not doing. Avoiding shiny stuff is definitely what's going to be happening for sure. And then also the newsletter, I think this is a great medium for me. I really love and enjoy doing the weekly newsletters, the weekly digests, I like to call them, each and every single week, providing as much value as possible in a different medium, not just YouTube, but also the writing style of things, which I also enjoy a lot as well. And then we've got YouTube. So YouTube, each and every single week, trying to just make sure that we're uploading, providing as much value as we possibly can, trying to also just focus a lot more on our specific targets, the specific people that are nerds about building systems, and also just making sure that we're providing as much value as we possibly can by driving YouTube each and every single week, that we're sharing something valuable and also uploading valuable content each and every single week, like I said. And also focusing on consistency and clarity as well, because I think clarity plus consistency is going to be the moat that ultimately allows, you know, me and us to continuously build what it is that we're building. Because with consistency, you know, you see a little bit of progress in the beginning, and then sometimes you don't see progress, and then later on you see massive amounts of progress, because nothing ever truly happens overnight. It is a result of compounding actions that lead to this massive result that everyone else sees on the tail end of it. So just making sure that each and every single week, consistency on a day-to-day and also on a weekly basis and a monthly basis. Are we actively doing the things that we need to do on a consistent basis? Are we getting the reps in that we need to make sure that we're doing each and every single day, each and every single week, each and every single month, just so that we can become better at the skill and just, you know, become operators in our own right? And clarity as well, like I said, clarity only comes through, you know, action, and just formulating that high degree of clarity through taking action each and every single day, each and every single week, and each and every single month, and making sure that we're just focusing on these pillars and making sure that each and every single week we're hitting these hard, and making sure that 2026 is going to be a year that we provide massive amounts of value, and also just move towards, you know, the main mission of, you know, creating as much value as we possibly can for the people that we're going to be working with as well. And with that, if you like the videos or you like anything or just want to connect, links to my newsletter, X, LinkedIn, Instagram is below, and I will see you guys in the next video in 2026. Let's crush 2026, and yeah, I'm excited.